Let's take a journey, one that some of you may not accept. This time on Science from Somebody. To accept that life could form from completely natural processes, one would need to look no further than the ocean. Life began in the sea, and it's where the majority of life exists today. The waters are teeming with life, even as we look closer to the microscopic level. Even if we look deeper to the Archaeans living in deep undersea water, heated by vents far past the boiling point. Even inside each animal's body, a teeming ocean of life. The cells running completely separate of the organism itself. The dynamical dance of molecules that perform the biological processes that constitute life. Inside the cells, proteins are the active products that work together with and control the chemical reactions that make the cell work. They control the function by which new proteins are made from the instructions in the genes. They form the structure that gives the cell its shape and parts of the connectivity that sticks cells together into tissues and even organs. A protein's shape determines its function, which is dependent on its hydrophobic properties. The same ocean that is teeming with life, recreated in each cell, and the proteins require the cells that don't differ too greatly from the ocean they came from. It is strongly believed the Earth formed 4.5 billion years ago, an extremely difficult time to comprehend. As far as we know, life did not exist at this time. Rocks didn't even form until 3.8 billion years ago. However, the ingredients for life would have had to form in this hellish environment. The atmosphere that formed during the Hadean would have trapped toxic gases that would have killed off the majority of all life that exists today. Yet bacteria, single-celled organisms, existed in the waters. These organisms had no DNA-containing nucleus. Our best understanding is that these bacteria came before Archaea. Archaeans include organisms that are extremophiles, and most likely the only organisms that can exist in extremely hostile environments, such as thermal vents, hellish formations that form in places where magma seeps through and creates new crust. The earliest primitive bacteria gained energy by chemosynthesis, the ingestion of organic molecules. These primitive bacteria formed the first fossils, bacterial microfossils. Interesting that these microfossils so closely resemble today's cyanobacteria. By the end of this era, they formed a thin crust on land as well, known as stromatolites. Also interesting that ancient shales in Australia, dated with uranium and lead at 2.7 billion years ago, contain microscopic traces of oil-containing sterol. Since eukaryotes are the only organisms that can make these molecules, it supports the understanding that amoeba-like organisms may have appeared this early in Earth's history of life. The origins of all modern cells occurred during this time. The organization of sequence comparisons of thousands of different prokaryotes leads to estimates that most classes of primitive microbes, chemotrophs and photosynthetic autotrophs, fused together 2.5 billion years ago in endosymbiosis. The symbiotic merging of two cells enabled the evolution of successful organisms with the capacity to use photosynthesis. This was the most important event to the evolution of life. These diverse photosynthetic organisms produce oxygen as a byproduct. This oxygenated Earth's atmosphere, which had a strong effect on the direction of the evolution of life. This led to more complex organisms that consumed oxygen, that were ancestors to all aerobic creatures. The Proterozoic era saw the steady oxygenation of the atmosphere, the formation of stable continents, and an abundant increase in bacteria and archaea. By around 1.8 billion years ago, the first eukaryotic celled animals appeared as fossils. Cyanobacteria, which may have appeared as early as 3.5 billion years ago, became much more common and widespread in the Proterozoic. The rapid buildup of oxygen due to their photosynthesis. Cyanobacteria were essential to early evolution and ecology throughout Earth's history. This was the cause for the explosion of diversity in the Precambrian to the Cambrian explosion. Cyanobacteria are still extremely essential. The chloroplast, where plants make food, is actually a living cyanobacteria's home within the plant's cell. Besides metabolism brought by endosymbiosis, the other innovation that eukaryotes brought to the table was sexual reproduction. This act made genetic diversity possible and greatly enhanced the population's ability to adapt and survive environmental changes. This allowed soft-bodied multicellular marine organisms to thrive and evolve. The oldest metazoan fossils found date before the Cambrian explosion, 650 to 544 million years ago, found in nearly 30 or so locations all over Earth. But the first shelled organisms diversified in the Cambrian.